Rock flower anemones are a favorite among reefing hobbyists all over the world for multiple reasons, not the least of which is their absolutely stunning coloration. But the fact that they also stay kind of small and they typically don't walk all over the aquarium like the other types of anemones do means that they are perfect for adding to a reef tank. One really cool thing about these guys is they're found not that far from me in the Caribbean, the West Indies, and the Gulf of Mexico, typically living between 1 and 100 feet of water depth in a well-lit but stable and warm environment. This is just one more thing that makes them good for your aquarium. And here's a fun fact about anemones. Even though they fall into the same phylum and class as other corals, the lack of a bony skeleton structure makes them not corals at all. They're a completely separate animal. And I want to shout out to my YouTube channel member for reminding me that this is a topic I intended on making a video about. And if you want to become a member of the Reef Rookies mission of respectful reef keeping and community, you can do that by clicking the link in the description below. One of the main reasons that people like these anemones so much is their wide range of coloration. And no two rock flower anemones are exactly alike, ranging from deep reds and blues and purples to oranges, yellows, and even neon greens. These things look absolutely amazing in your reef tank, and they can be a centerpiece if you choose to do so. There's two parts to their vivid coloration of these animals. They themselves have their own pigmentation that occurs naturally within their tissues, but there are also a special type of algae living within these tissues called zooxanthella. Now, these guys are responsible for the photosynthesis that happens within this animal, and they output amino acids and carbohydrates and sugars, which is the major fuel source for these guys to sustain life. Another one of the awesome benefits of these animals is the tank size and environment that they need is perfect for reef aquariums. You can put these in anything from like a 5-gallon nano tank all the way up to a massive tank of just about any size because they're very adaptable to the environment that they're in. But they do need a stable and well-established environment. You don't want your water parameters in your tank swinging around when you're trying to keep these animals. Stability is one of the most important things that we can have in our reef aquariums, and rock flower anemones are no different. They appreciate that good stable environment, so you should wait to put one in your tank until the 6 or maybe 8-month mark once that tank has reached a more stable situation. In the wild, they can typically be found from 1 to about 100 feet of depth, stuck and found within the rocky crevices and sandy substrates located in those zones. That environment is already there with our live rock and our sand substrate, so it just makes sense to get some of these. Rock flower anemones are basically carnivorous. Any small little meaty animal that gets anywhere near them, they're going to grab a hold of that thing with their sticky tentacles and they're going to consume it. In our reefs, it's not quite so bad, but you do still have to be careful that you don't have any really small little gobies or shrimps or anything like that that are going to get near these guys because they could become a snack. But the feeding regimen of these is very easy. They will take mysis or brine shrimp or really any other meaty preparation that you decide to put into the tank, and you only have to feed them a couple of times a week if you're going to spot feed them at all. The ones that I have in my tank, they regularly catch mysis and brine and even some pellets when I feed my fish, and I don't do anything special for them specifically. It is interesting to note that these are a little bit different than the other types of anemones that we keep in saltwater aquaria in that these can be male or female. They typically don't propagate themselves through fission, which is literally ripping themselves in half like the other anemones do. These, the males will release sperm into the water, the females will take that in, and they will go through a period of gestation, and then they will release those gametes out near themselves, usually right under their fringes, and you'll have new baby rock flower anemones. And although this doesn't happen a lot in reef aquaria, it has happened before, and people are able to propagate these in their own tanks. Though the babies tend to be a little bit more pale and a little bit more color diminished than the parents, they tend to color up over time. However, I cannot find any scientific information for a visual cue on how to sex these animals into male or female. It's pretty widely accepted into the hobby that the male ones have these ridges along their fringe or along their tentacles, and the females are more smooth. But I can't find anything that verifies that scientifically, so it could be wrong. Really, the only definitive way to know whether or not you have males or females is if you see them actually spawning in your aquariums. The males will kind of balloon up a little bit and they will release their sperm into the water, and it just looks like a kind of a smoke sort of a situation. And the females will flatten down against the rock and kind of curl up, and that's pretty much the only direct indicator of which ones you have. So it's best just to buy a bunch. These animals are compatible with just about anything that you want to also have in your reef tank, but caution should be kept to make sure that the animals you have in there aren't going to want to pick on these rock flowers and potentially stress them out. Some of the larger wrasses and the larger species of angelfish are probably not suited to be keeping with this animal, but pretty much anything else goes. Your clownfish, though, are going to completely ignore these guys. So I said all of that to pretty much say this. These things are really easy to keep in a saltwater aquarium. As long as your aquarium is stable, you have enough light, and they grab some food every now and then, and they're not being picked on by predators, you're pretty much going to have an easy time taking care of these guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more saltwater aquarium information, and then watch this video up here right now. I think you'll find it pretty interesting.